Hey everybody, and welcome to this month's Instructor Community Call. This is the November call. My name, as always, is Kyle Rosenthal, so welcome. We've got a few people attending today, which is great. Otherwise, if you are listening to the recording, then thank you for listening to the recording, or watching the recording, I should say, or listening, whichever. I'm not picky, as long as you're hearing the voice and getting some of the content. A little bit of an agenda. Normally we have a guest to come in for these sessions, but today I thought we'd do something a little bit different and go back to sort of a bit of grassroots with regards to some instructor content and that sort of thing. So actually, some of the things that are useful for content. So therefore, there is no guest today. It's me. But we will be talking about some instructor sort of goodies and that sort of thing. The things that are kind of maybe not as well known, or things that you did know that you've now forgotten, and try and make sure that we bring those back to mind for you. Things that are in the platform that often we get people asking about. Hey, can we have this? And it's like, yes, you can. It's already there. And then we'll have a look at the instructor recognition. As you all know, that's my favorite part. And then hopefully we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. All right. So yes, me. Hello. All right. A little bit of an update for the Microsoft folk that have joined, and the MCTs that are in. Just sort of something. This is kind of a bit of a moving target, but I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of it and bring it to top of mind. For those Microsoft, for the MCTs that are in, you will know that Microsoft are aiming to retire the Azure passes, right? And these are the courses that currently still use Azure passes in some way, shape, or form. Okay, they are being retired or modified, right? So just to run down that list, so the AZ140, that one, the Cloud Slice version of that is now available, and that's what will be what your organization managers and that sort of thing will be scheduling. The reason that that's important to know is because obviously some of the format of how the labs run will be slightly different. So you need to make sure that you are across that and aware of it. The should be AZ1005, the virtual desktop for enterprise, that has been retired now. So has been retired from Microsoft. The 2001, the 2008, and the AZ400. Those ones are, so that's the 2001, 2008, and AZ400. Those ones currently still use Azure passes, but the Cloud Slice versions of those are being created. Currently, we're kind of anticipating a release date of around the 22nd of November for those ones. So then at that point, you'll get the Cloud Slice version when you're running. For the PL400, that one is now running Cloud Slice. PL500 has been modified with the lab, so it doesn't require an Azure Pass. SC200 is still going to be running Azure Pass for the time being. Microsoft are still working on ways to be able to essentially rewrite that course a little bit so that it can actually have the Azure Pass retired out of it. And then the final one, the SC300, that one has already got. We're in the process of building out the Cloud Slice version of that. And again, looking to have that released around the 22nd of November. But as those get updated, as new versions and that so they get released, we'll be sending that out to your operations managers so that you will know when they're coming through. Okay. The newly published courses. Now, I hope that all of you are admiring my wizardry with regards to PowerPoint, and namely how I presented these. I thought I need to have something different than what we've had of just the very plain, flat-looking pictures. So I mixed it up a bit this month. I hope you're appreciating it. All right, so newly published courses. These are the new ones that are out. There is actually another one that's just been released as well. It actually got released overnight, and I only just noticed it before we came on, which is another Copilot course as well. So there are more courses coming all the time, and that's proof there's going to be updates all the time. But these are the new ones that have been released in the last couple of weeks. So you'll notice in particular that there's more of those applied skills type courses that are now being translated into then the Azure, into training courses or presentation courses that you can do. Right, so a little bit of a round out for those folk, the Microsoft folk. Okay, all right. So instructor secrets. Okay, now not really secrets, right? These are things that are in the platform, have been in for a while, but they're things that aren't necessarily known by instructors, or as I said before, maybe you've known them before, but now you've forgotten them because you use them, that sort of thing. So it's maybe some timely sort of reminders, right? So the first thing is just to there is some instructor resources available for you, right? So there's things that you can do before class that you can use during classes, okay? So and I've kind of got little screenshots in there and that sort of thing, but so just to kind of run through the different types of resources that are available for you and things that you might want to use. The first one is the instructor dashboard. Okay, now the instructor dashboard, if I flip across to here, this is an example of an instructor dashboard. This basically has a calendar. It's got the week at a glance calendar. It's then got your month at a glance as well. In addition to that, for the sessions that you're running on that particular day, there's actually shortcuts in there to be able to get to different parts of the different parts of the course of the class itself. But it's also got shortcuts in there for things like, say, for instance, updating your competencies, particularly if you are a contract instructor. That's a really handy one to be able to do, so you can mark what courses you're available to be able to teach. You can also put in things like, say, for instance, block out times and that sort of thing to be able to say, right, these are the times where I'm not available to be able to teach. You can keep track of there your achievements, and we'll talk some more about that a little bit later on. But yeah, it kind of gives you a way to be able to land in one spot, see at a glance what you're doing, particularly if you are in that circumstance where you've got some double ups of of courses. Then maybe it gives you a way to be able to kind of to be able to see what basically at a glance where you're going to and navigate to it really easily as well. Just like as an aside, and this came from a conversation I had with an instructor yesterday who was saying, hey, look, I've got, every time I log in, I seem to have a different calendar or a different set of people, like different set of classes that are showing. The class that I was running last week doesn't show anymore. Class that I ran last month showed the other day, but then it doesn't show, and then it shows again. What's going on? And then kind of did a bit of a dive into it and worked out that this particular instructor had on our platform 27 different accounts across different. Now he's a contract instructor, so he has different accounts that are across multiple organizations. In some cases, he had there was 4 organizations that he had 2 accounts for in those organizations, and so depending on which one which one he logged into would then depend on which calendar it was that was showing. Obviously, right now, That's not ideal, and I get that, So one of the things that I'm going to recommend, if you are in that circumstance, if you're going, okay, I have so many different accounts sitting on the platform now, I'm going to recommend that you have a look to see, and you can contact to the help desk, say, hey, can you help me? I just want to find out what I've got, and we can work to consolidate all of those into one contract instructor account. Now, there may be limits to that, and I say that because depending on the organization you're working for, maybe you can't, like they don't use the access to the contractor, contractor items and that sort of thing. But it will make your life easier if that's possible to be able to do. And if you're going to an organization, say, hey, I've already got a Skillable account, please don't create a new one for me. Use my contractor account, right? And then there's a couple of things that benefits with. One is that, for things like your achievements, it all goes into one spot. It also makes your life easier because you don't have to look after, 36 different accounts, right? So and then work out which one am I logging into today. But yeah, so as much as possible, it's going to make your life simple if you can do that, if you can shrink it down. So I would recommend doing that if at all possible. Okay, so Instructor Dashboard, handy place to be able to land to, right? So now it's available directly by going to the Instructor Dashboard with whichever organization you're with. So whatever the URL is for that particular organization, /instructor/dashboard will get you to there. Okay. When you land in a class, so when you go into a class, you'll see at the top of the class there's an area where you've got roster, pre-class checklist, sign-in sheet, etc., right? Manage labs, monitor labs. Okay. Those two ones really important, right? So the roster is obviously important because it shows you what students are enrolled, right? And particularly if you're using training keys to be able to, or event keys to be able to get students to self-enroll, it's how you can check to see how their enrollment's going, right? And see what's in there. If you're using the Microsoft, if you're doing Microsoft training and your organization is using a Microsoft Learn courseware link, or alternatively are using the badging at the end as well, and we've discussed that in the past that can be loaded into the organization's profile, so that then that badging or the credentialing for the Microsoft side of things, which then is what gives your organization credit for having a student go through, right? You can actually track that in here as well. So there'll be an additional one in here if you're using the if you're tracking the badging, but you can see basically where what the student has done or hasn't done. Okay, depending on the labs and how the labs are set up, you might also be able to see at a glance what percentage they are through the labs. Okay, so that's one thing. Okay. Depending on the organization as well, you may have like the sign-in sheet and attendance, so you can actually check off that someone's actually attended, that sort of thing. So we can do that as part of the roster, like on the roster page as well, and part of the class page, and go to the sign-in sheet, and then again check on the attendance chart to see what days have actually been in there. The last two that are sitting over here are really handy, right? So the manage files is for class files. So this is where you can share something to the class as part of the the classroom environment. So basically, when the students launch or land into the class, that's where they can see, what files that you might have put. So it might be additional PDF files. It might be some challenges that you want to set them. But it's additional content that you can add into the class for the students to be able to get access to. There is another part of sharing files, right? So manage files is one of them. When you go into the monitor labs, that's where you can go and actually obviously see what the students are doing and monitor what their actions are being taken in the lab environment and only in the lab environment. You can't actually see their live desktop, of course, because that would be not a great thing. But if you're doing remote training, that's the thing. It's how you can, go into monitor labs, and then you can then take control of the student's students' virtual machines or their virtual environment, and then assist them with whatever it is they're doing. Right? It's also a way you can kind of go, is anyone actually doing anything if you're doing that remote training? Just keep an eye on the people are actually doing something. Within that same window, there are two options in the monitor labs, right? There's the options to be able to have instructor files. Now, this is where you can upload files that will then be available in the virtual machine, as long as the virtual machine is being set up with a CD or a DVD-ROM, and most of them are nowadays, that'll be the default configuration, then basically you can inject that in. Now, you can have storage of your own within there, so you can store multiple of those files. Up to 2 gig is the size. There is a limit as to how much you can have stored, right? But you could have them ready to go from a class that you ran last week would be available again this week at the time that you want it to be available. So say, for instance, you want to have an additional, SQL script or something like that you want to make available for someone to be able to do, or you want to have like a database that they can import, then you can add that as an ISO. We actually create the ISO for you if you upload the file. And then at the time that you want to, you say make that available, and then in the resources tab, it will then show as something that's available for the student to be able to use, right? And they can inject that as, or they can load that up as a CD in their in their lab. That same page is where we can go and do send notifications. So again, if you're doing remote training, it's a nice handy way to be able to interact. Basically, send a notification across to all of the students that you might have, a little pop-up message. Happens within the lab environment, and it will pop up. And that might be, say, for instance, we're going to take a break for 10 minutes, or finish up until the end of step 1, or that sort of thing that you might want to be able to do without interrupting their flow by having a chat with them, but instead just simply going over, sending them a pop-up message that's going on, right? So that's, a couple of little sort of things that are available in the platform, but aren't necessarily known or recognized, or things that you've maybe you've looked at and you've gone, I don't know what that's for. I don't have time for that. I'll look at it later on. But they're things that are kind of tried to that we put in to try and make your training as smooth as possible, so that it then makes the student experience as smooth as possible, right? If, say, for instance, there's things that you go, well, that's great, but it would be really nice if it could also do, insert wonderful feature here, let us know. There's always room for improvement into here. The base of this, the development of what sits in for the instructor resources, what sits in for the tools and that sort of thing, have been developed over time, and it's through feedback from instructors, right? And the majority of the people who, in the early days were working on the platform were instructors, right? And being live in the classroom. Some of the things that have been in here are things that stuff that's come from my feedback from when I've been in the classroom and gone, it would be really good if I could do this, right? So say, for instance, the manage files as an example. What's in here, that directly from feedback that I gave, because I said, well, it would be really good if there was a way to be able to share a file across the entire class. I was like, oh, okay, that's a good idea. So yeah, so please give us feedback if there's things you go, that would be better if I could do insert whatever it is. Okay. The other question that often comes up from an instructor perspective, well, it actually comes up from the students, right, and then feeds back to you as the instructors, is how long does this lab last for? How long do I get access to the lab for? Okay. And the answer is that it depends. Now, for some of you, you're using your own content, so therefore the access to that is going to be pretty much determined based off your requirements. So say, for instance, Veeam, as an example, has a 30-day access for their labs. And the reason it's a 30-day access is because that's basically how long they wanted to have to be able to do it. Originally, it was, like in the previous version, it was 10 days. Then it got extended out to 30 days. Our default, as much as possible, is 180 days access. Okay, so therefore the student has 180 days access to the lab environment. The wrinkle that comes with that is it depends on the lab and the content provider, or the content provider, as to what that actually means. And what I mean by that is that, say, for instance, if you are using a Microsoft course that has an Azure Pass associated with it, that Azure Pass is going to limit how long access is to an extent. So the Azure Pass is valid from when it gets activated for 30 days or a value. Now that value could be $50, it could be $100 US, depending on what it is, right? And whichever one runs out first, that then means that Azure Pass is no longer valid. Now, student still has access to the lab environment, so they can start up their own, they could start up their own trial account if they wanted to be able to continue using that. But with the Azure Pass, there is a limit on that. Okay. They'll still see the Azure Pass, and of course, any of the resources that they're using or anything like that will then be disabled at the end of that 30 days, or once they've spent the spend limit. Okay. Again, in the Microsoft world, because most of these limits come from within Microsoft, within the Microsoft world, is that there is a 7-day tenant limit. So if there is a course that we're providing a Microsoft tenant with, so they're the ones that have like pre-populated with an E5 license or something like that. That's for that particular course, and it will say in the course description that as the instructor you can see, it will tell you this very specifically that there's a limit, right? And it's a 7-day tenant limit. Now that 7-day limit is from when the tenant is first used, right? So basically, once we issue it, so once you launch the lab and we issue the tenant, there's a clock that goes on it, which is 7 days. Okay. Now, with that one, if the student was to get to the end of the 7 days and they go, everything stopped working, if they close end their session and then come back in again, we will reissue them with a new tenant, which is then going to be valid for a further 7 days. Now, I know that's not ideal for some of you. I have one of my customers who's like, but we do training course over a extended period. That doesn't work for us. It's like, well, I understand that, but this is like, we operate within the limits of the tenants that were issued from Microsoft. So it's a 7-day tenant. My recommendation, and obviously your classroom, you run it how you want to. My recommendation for those sort of courses where you are where you have that say for instance an extended course. So as an example, like this particular customer runs their the 5-day course, they'll run that over a 30-day period. They do it sort of part-time. My recommendation is to as an instructor to think about the fact that there is that limit and then how you're going to present it. So I would do the presentation. Yeah, I'd do my demo, right? And I'd actually demonstrate what's going on, etc. Show people what's in place using my demo tenant, which as an MCT I have. And then knowing that there's that 7-day limit on the tenant for the students, concentrate their hands-on part into that 7 days. Right. Again, not ideal, but it's just sort of we've got to play with the hand we're dealt. So think about kind of how that access, how you're going to do that access. Okay. The other one, of course, is that for the labs that are cloud slice labs, there is a limit on how many times a cloud slice environment can be used, right? So each one of the labs, so say for instance, if it's a 10 lab course, then each one of those individual labs have a limit of 10 launches per lab. So therefore, there is a limit within there. And the idea is like sort of that well, there's a couple of reasons for that. One is obviously that costs real money on the back end to be able to run that because it's running in Azure. But the main thing is like sort of the 10 launches of any particular lab should be enough to be able to complete whatever it is. Like bearing in mind that the Cloud Slice labs are designed to be that short, targeted sort of process, and therefore it might be say a 45-minute, 1 hour type session or something like that in that lab. So now all of that kind of comes together in that hodgepodge of everything else that makes it complex, right? Now, to add complexity to it, remember I said another layer of complexity. Again, remember I said there was a Copilot lab that got launched overnight last night my time. That Copilot lab is a one-day lab. It only has access for 1 day because of the Copilot resources that are associated with it. So it's like that, and so that's an extra line, that's on there. So what I want to make sort of impress upon you, right, is that these limits do exist, right? There's no way around it. There's no sugarcoating the fact that there is limits to how some of these things are. However, knowing that you're aware of it, yep, okay, so these limits exist. I know that they exist. How do I deal with that, and how do I work around it? One other thing, just to make mention, because I had someone do this, right? Those 7-day tenants, right? At the end of that 7 days, they go away. Those tenants are destroyed, never to be found again. Okay. I say that because I had someone who associated their own personal domain with one of those tenants, and then obviously the tenant got destroyed at the end of the 7 days, and then they went, well, how do I unassociate it, right? So it's because it's essentially trapped within that tenant that no longer exists. So they don't have access to be able to sign in and disassociate or anything like that. There is processes. It's handled by Microsoft, so it's on the Microsoft side to be able to do that. But it wasn't an easy process for them to go through. So with your students, if you've got something that, if you've got a student who you think is going to do something like that, encourage them not to, right? Or say, look, just bear in mind, at the end of the 7 days, this will pack up and go away. So what you need to do is basically clean out any of your changes before you get to that point. Okay. All right. Now, we're going to stop at that point and just say, hey, is there any questions around any of those, instructor topics and that sort of thing? Because it is some of it might be new, some of it might be things that you're now going, now I have more questions than what I had before, or are we good? So, or hopefully for some of you, that's actually cleared up some of the questions you might have had. Okay. All right, if you do have any questions, feel free, make sure you drop them into the chat window, and we'll jump on them in there. Oh, okay. All right, so moving on then to the part that I love, right? As those of you who have joined us before know, this is the bit that I actually really enjoy, because it gets us to see to recognize the work that you do and the impact that you have within the classroom. Okay, so instructor recognition. So this is for any of the milestones that were reached since October, so in the last month or so. Okay, so number of classes that are being delivered, right? So we've had 235 people that have taught their first class. We do have, I'm looking at the list, Johannes has joined us. So Johannes, congratulations on your first class on the platform. Really appreciate your partnership into there. I think Alexandra was signed up, but I don't think she's actually in by the look of it, Alexandra Petronella, but congratulations to you. The 50 people have reached their 25 classes delivered on the platform. 32 have got 50 classes, and we've got 13 that have got the 100 classes delivered. So, great milestones. And like the thing that I always say within here, right, is that you probably don't understand the impact that you are having on the students that are in your class, right? After a while, I always find that sort of the students become a bit of a blur after a while, particularly if you're doing short run courses. Then after a while, it's like someone will come up to you in the supermarket or something like that. Hey, and you go, what? I don't know who you are. Oh, you taught my class of whatever, last year. It's like, oh, hello, yes, yeah. And I've had people that have said that they've got a promotion because of something they did, or they solved a problem at work because of something that they learned in class. And that's very cool things when you hear that sort of thing. So the other ones we've got for our students reached, and this is where you directly see that impact, right? So so Johannes, a double badge. So first student reached. Congratulations in that as well. But we had 222 people that joined you in that level of achievement. We had 73 people that made it to 100 students. We had 23 that had more than 750 students. Just looking to see if James had put it. James was going to be here, but presumably he's going to listen to the recording afterwards. So congratulations, James. 1,000 students reached. There's Jose and Sanjit. So Jose has joined us. It's probably a bit early for Sanjit, but congratulations, Jose, and thank you for joining us today. So congratulations, 1,000 students. A huge achievement to get past that. Just think about how many lives you've been impacted within there. And then we had 12 folk that impacted over 2,000 students. So that is again an amazing milestone to reach. So amazing achievement. So congratulations to all of our badge winners, all of our badge winners. No, achievements. You don't win them, right? You've earned them. So congratulations. Do make sure that you we'll issue out the badges for you to be able to claim, which then means you can claim those and show them on LinkedIn or on your email signatures, everything like that, to be able to put through. So again, congrats. Really appreciate your support and partnership. And certainly, whether it's your first student, whether it's your first class, whether it's your 2,000 students, whether it's your 300th class. Again, if you have any suggestions or anything like that, you want to make suggestions to come, make sure you let us know, and then we can if there's things you think this would be great, then let us know, and we'll see what we can do about working that into the platform. Remembering that there is steps that goes through. So if you go back about 3 or 4 months. When we discussed what happens to any requests and that sort of thing that come through, you'll be able to see what that process is if you weren't with us then, but you'd then be able to see put a request in if there's something that you think, and then we'll work about putting it into the platform. All right, so instructor offers. What's the sort of offers that we have for you? So skillable.com/offers, place to be able to go to with there. So remember, you have free access to be able to prep for classes and also to be able to expand your knowledge. Now, if you are, if it's Microsoft content, if it's Veeam content, that's basically if those if you're nominated as a vendor instructor for those, you have access into there. If it's for one of your custom labs, if it's your own lab environments or your own labs, same offer applies, but we need to make sure that you're nominated in the platform as an instructor. So make sure you're tagged within there, and then you'll be able to get access to run the lab environments outside of the context of it actually being a class. So kind of gives you that practice of being able to use the hands-on environments. We do have a couple of people that have joined, and this is the reason I keep on sort of mentioning that, because I know there's folk that are on today who are using their own lab environments. For those that aren't, if there's something that you say, for instance, if you've got a brilliant idea for a new lab, have a chat with your operations manager. Say, hey, look, this would be great if we could do this, this, this. If it can be virtualized, we can host it, right? If it can operate within AWS or Azure, we can host it. So you're not just limited to having, the vendor labs. If there's lab environments that you think, hey, this would be great to be able to put through, then you do have the option to be able to work through your operations person to be able to create lab environments on our platform that you could then use in the classroom. If it's vendor labs, as I said, you've got access to that. So there's mock lab access. We also do have an offer for our MCTs and for the AWS instructors, where you have all access passes into the challenge labs environment. So you get access to those, which then means that you can step outside of the AWS world or the MCT world, and you can then start using start practicing and exploring other technologies as well, which kind of expands out your knowledge, right? And as well as that, of course, the instructor recognition is going to come as part of that. So instructor recognition, so badging, and that's the badging for the classes and the students. Another reason why having 36 different accounts across our platform, may not be a great thing, is that it's really hard to keep a track of which which classes you've taken and how many students you've impacted. So the more consolidation we can do, it's going to make your life easier. It's also going to make our life easier to be able to do that instructor recognition and make sure that you get the recognition that you deserve for the work that you put in. Rightio. Okay, so because there's no guest star, it was just me today. It's sort of like we've managed to go through a little bit faster than what we normally do, but that does mean that if you've got any open questions or anything like that you want to ask, please drop them into the chat window and we can answer those.
Yes, hello.
Hey, how are you?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Yes, I'm fine. Thank you. Thanks for this wonderful talk and all of this presentation is very nice and helpful. Just have two questions. Number one, when we, as you said in the instructor dashboard, we are able to see the percentage of the complete labs, but unfortunately, it's not actually showing each single lab. It just shows as a whole when the students,
right.
But let's say that I want to, as an instructor, I want to know which lab has a problem or which lab. So is that also possible in the future, or?
So if you go to the so when you go from the dashboard, if you go into the class, then go into the roster. In the roster, I think from memory you can, and I'll have to double check on this. So I'll have to have a look in a live thing. But I think from memory you can look at if you click onto the student. Actually, no. I think maybe if you click onto the transcript on the student, it'll show you what they've completed. I'll have to double check on that to make sure that my memory is correct in there, or that it's not correct. Let me just double check. Bear with me a second. Class that I can jump into to have a bit of a look. So what you can do, it's a little bit of a hop to get to it, but essentially when you're if you go to the roster, and then you find whichever student is you wanting to have a look at, what you can do is you can have a look on that, click on that student's name, and then if you go to current training, you should be able to see the
Yes.
labs that they've launched, and that should also show you whether it's completed or not.
Yeah, but
So
unfortunately, when I clicked on the student's name, I got a message said access denied.
Okay, right, sure. Okay. Okay, yeah. Okay, leave that with a second. I'm not. Yeah, let me have a look because you're right. I'll show the progress overall through the as they're going through the class, but not necessarily through each one of the labs. While they're actually in a lab, if you go to the monitor page, it will show you their progress in that particular lab. But it's like that's only when they're actually running. So yeah. So okay. Leave that with me as a suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah. As an end of semester report, sometimes we need these data to know the progress and next year. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So can I have your email, or I have anyone to contact later, or?
Yes. So you can feel free to drop me an email. Well, actually, if you want to put it into into feedback.skillable.com, enter it into there. I'll keep an eye on it, and then what I'll do is I'll take that and I'll make sure that we then that we follow up through that, because then it goes into the site. Yeah.
Yeah, another small question regarding the style of the students' projects, if they are using the labs. Considering the limitation of the accessibility, do you think that it's better to give them a small project within each lab, or it's better to have one large project where they can use all of the labs at once? Because our students are facing problem, because if they go home and try to enter, they have a limited, like 10 times access to the labs. So from your experience, which better style of giving the students some homework or projects?
Yeah, so are we talking about, is this using the Microsoft, like the Cloud Slice Labs? Is that what you're using for this, or is it something else? Okay. So remembering that 10 lab launch is per lab. So that's each individual lab. So if they're going and doing the work through it, like say for instance, a normal student, right, would be, I would suspect that the first time they'll go through it, they'll be going, I'm not sure what I'm doing. Then, second time, a little bit more confidence. By the time they got to the fourth or fifth time, you'd hope that they pretty much know whatever the lab was they were doing inside out. The 10 is a limit because we have to have we had to have some sort of limit on it. Originally, I think from memory, it might have been it was like 3 or something like that. So it's being bumped up in the context of a class. If, say for instance, you've got a particular student who, for whatever reason, like that 10 is becoming a real problem for them. Maybe they've launched it, they ran out of time, or they didn't, they got distracted, they didn't complete it. That's the thing. You can put a request into the help desk, and we can reset that count. Obviously, we don't want to do that for all the students all the time, but if there is 1 or 2 of them that you need that you want to be able to do that for, we can do that. So.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you.
No problems at all. Going to put up this one, which is our resources. So just some of the resources for the instructor recognition, the dashboard, as well as that our Slack channel as well. And remember, I said if you're going to go on, if you've got suggestions or anything like that for the platform, you're at the coalface, you're doing the hard work. Go to feedback.skillable.com. and you can register and put in your feedback there, and I promise you that it will get looked at, and it may not necessarily be put into the platform straight away. It may not ever really get into the platform, depending on what it is, but it certainly will influence, like say for instance, our development going forward. Our dev team do certainly look at that and work the way through the requests. Okay, so. Now, there's one other thing that I needed to mention as well. For those of you that might be heading to, Okay, Johannes, that's a good point. So changing the way to register for AWS. So okay, so having a link to Credly. Okay, that's good feedback. Thank you very much. We'll make sure that we take that back and make sure that we're up to date with that process. And like we had to do something similar with how Microsoft were doing their validation of instructors and that sort of thing previously. For similar sort of reasons. So there was they had a change. But yeah, thank you for that. Appreciate it. So just one thing. If you are anyone who might be traveling to Chicago next week, now obviously if you listen to the recording, this might have been in the past, but if you're going to Chicago next week for the Microsoft Ignite event, we will have a booth in the expo area. So feel free to drop by, say hello, say hey, listen to watch the instructor community call. Feel free to, our CEO is going to be there. Feel free to let him know just how great this is and how much you enjoy listening to my voice. And watching the presentation, just as an aside, you make but yeah, so Kristen's put in, so we're in booth 519. It is going to be a large expo hall, so make sure you do seek us out. As well as that, if you are going to there either as an attendee or as staff or something like that, you can actually do a free Microsoft exam as well, or a GitHub exam. Both of those you have to be on site to be able to do. And if you are in that area, I'm actually going to be managing the our on-site presence from the labs, from the hands-on lab, plus the certification area. So feel free to say hi. But otherwise, yeah, make sure you sign up. There is obviously limited seats that are available, so you need to make sure that you sign up for those exams. If you're doing them on, if you wanted to do that, do it. You're doing it on site. Go to the Ignite website and then follow the links for that to be able to do the certification. But yeah, so if we see you there, great. If not, then enjoy your time not in Chicago. Otherwise we will see you next month in our session next month, which will be our countdown to Christmas edition. So, alrighty, well, thank you very much, and we'll see you next month.